It's longer time. Yay! Lager time. Poems, stories and thoughts. By me, Paul Cree. Who else? Yes. Greetings. Bonjour. What's happening? Welcome to Lager time. Legions of lager lights. Push up your bottles, your pints or cans or whatever it is. I'm doing this off memory and I can't remember what the slogan says or how it goes. But here we go. My name is Paul Cree. Welcome to Lager Time. This is my blog and podcast where I share bits of writing that I've been working on, be it stories or poems or music, or more recently these sort of like anecdotal things related to quotes from Marcus Aurelius's legendary book of Meditations. I'll get onto that in just a moment. This is only a very brief introduction. This week I will be from Wednesday. So today the date is the 8th of April, but from Wednesday through till Saturday I'll be back on the stage at the Polka Theatre in Wimbledon in the Beats and Elements retelling of Romeo and Julliet. It's like a hip-hop theatre musical meant for 8 years old and above, fun for all the family. I'm in the second cast, so the show's already been running for over a month. It's done loads of shows already. They've had loads of packed audiences and great reviews and lots of excited people who seem to have really enjoyed it. But I'm coming in as Mercutio and Benvolio and their version of Friar Tuck, a character called Freddy from Wednesday. So when you get this, I'll probably already be probably 6 shows in or 5 shows in by that point. And I've not been in a show for a couple of years, so I'm excited, a little bit nervous, but I was back in rehearsals last week and I pretty much thoroughly enjoyed it. So there you go. If you can get yourself down to Wimbledon, you can bring the kids, hopefully you'll have a good time. The shows are in the morning or in the afternoons, 2 a day, so you don't have to worry about getting home late or anything like that. And for those of you with kids, school holidays, so gives them something to do. But there you go. So this week it's number 8 in this series that I've been writing on Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. This week is based on a quote from Book 8, which at this point I haven't yet named, so I don't know what it's called. But the podcast will be titled a good name, all going well, hopefully. So yeah, this is not a very good introduction, but I'm in a rush, as I am quite a lot these days. But once this show's over, things will settle down a little bit. And there's only 3 more of these I'm going to do. So I said I was going to do one for each chapter of the Meditations book, and this is number 8. So there's 4 more to go after this, even though I just said 3 more, which is quite interesting because it's loosely related to the topic that I'm talking about in this week's episode, which is loosely related to seeing things through, or in my case, plenty of examples where I don't see things through when to talk about playing computer games. But we've got to number 8. So as ever, thank you to everyone who's read and listened and watched. I don't know what there's nothing to watch, but read and listened so far. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I had some good views on the last one. But yeah, if you're interested in commenting, leave comments on wherever it is you listen, or if you're on Substack, so it all helps. I hope you're enjoying it. Yeah, only 3 more to go after this. As ever, if you wish to support my work, please recommend it to a friend, a mate, or someone who's vaguely interested in this strange little niche thing that I'm pursuing, whatever that is. I think I'm going to do some music once this series is over. There's another little EP I've been waiting to record for about 2 years. Yeah, maybe I'm going to do that. I've also started dabbling with a couple of little story bits again, but I don't know. But anyway, back to this. Yeah, so support, recommend it to a friend. Last few books I've got of the SUBURBAN, you can get it on my website, paulcree.co.uk, And also there's 3 copies of the Hip Hop Theatre Anthology, as I keep calling it, but it's actually called Hip Hop Theatre Trilogy, which is Beats and Elements, which is the theatre company that I'm part of, which is the theatre company that are doing Romeo and Julliet, who are, we're doing all right at the moment. There's a lot of press for this most recent show, and they always wind up referencing the shows we've done in the past. So there's 3 plays in there: High Rise, A State of Mind, and No Milk for the Foxes, which I co-wrote. And No Milk for the Foxes next year will be 10 years old, which is nuts. That's the first show that me and Con did together, Conrad Murray, who I set it up with. And then we've since gone on to work with loads of other people, and Con's killing it all around the UK and quite often in other parts of the world as well. But you can get that plus Con's solo show called Denmark, another Shakespeare link there where he references Shakespeare. But yeah, 3 plays in 1 book, and you can get all of those on polka.co.uk, or with the anthology you can buy it on Matthew in Drama, which is Bloomsbury, which sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? So I've got a book on Bloomsbury. Weirdly enough, I actually got first time this year. The book's been out for 2 years now, I think, and I got a royalty payment. And then I also got one for the Suburban as well. I don't know how, because it's not from the publisher. It's from an agency that collects royalties from libraries and stuff. But yeah, it's a nice little payment. And then the Bloomsbury money came in for the royalties from that book. So that was pretty cool. All these little minor wins. It wasn't a lot of money, but I don't know, it's a nice little thing. But there you go. You can get those on my website, or you can get them online. Once my copies of the Suburban have sold out, I've got no plans on printing anymore. I've managed to sell a few hundred, so I'm pretty pleased with that. There's also some music online. I mentioned some music earlier. There's a bunch of things on Spotify and Apple and that. I've got a spoken word EP called 96 EP. There's Toast in the Machine, which I bought out about 18 months ago, which I self-produced. There's Raw 64's of Boredom, which I produced during lockdown, which is very rough and raw, but I'll be putting out a second one of those, all going well. And there's lots of features of artists that I've worked with, mostly other Beats and Elements artists. As me and Conrad have done a bunch of tunes. There's loads of those on there. There's Kiki, K-I, which is Lakeisha Lynch-Stevens, who's also part of Beats and Elements, and she's the other collaborator on the Romeo and Juliet show. Yeah, and all of that. So it's all on there. And of course there's YouTube, there's tons of old videos or whatever. So there you go. If you're interested in helping out, you can support in those ways. Yeah, that's it really. I wanted to say I hope you had a good Easter, but I immediately went into the babble and forgot what I was going to do, and even messed up my own little tagline. But there you go. That's how we roll these days. But yeah, hope you have a great weekend, because I'm doing this on Monday, but you'll hopefully get this on a Friday. And maybe, just maybe, I will see you at the Polka Theatre. But yeah, if not, peas and taters, keep it larger than life. Have a good one. Paul. In the constitution of the rational being, I can see no virtue that counters justice, but I do see the counter to pleasure, self-control. Book 8, passage 39. Sometimes when I'm reading stuff, I'll come across a little nugget that I find fascinating, something that I've never heard about before, like the Stanford Marshmallow experiment. I'll get mad excited, then want to go and tell everyone about it, as if I discovered it myself. One of the little drawbacks of this, which I've found out many times, is that when you tell people about your major findings, who are themselves a bit educated or a bit cultured, they go, "Yeah, everyone knows about that." And I end up feeling and looking like a bellend, even if the thing itself, like the Stanford Marshmallow experiment, is worth getting mad excited about. I first heard about the Marshmallow experiment a few years ago. For those of you that don't know about this, it tests which kids are able to defer their gratification by placing a marshmallow on a plate in front of them, which they're told not to eat. I think there's some sort of reward promised to them if they don't eat the marshmallow. The study goes on to show that kids that are able to resist temptation and not eat the marshmallow tend to go on and become more successful in life, and the kids that don't typically struggle. Something like that anyway. I'm sure there's smarter bods than me out there who will point out the flaws in this study or provide examples of kids that buck the trend, but in the case of this, they're irrelevant and I'm not an academic. I feel pretty confident, had I been one of those kids that was tested, I would have walloped down that marshmallow in a matter of milliseconds. And I don't even like marshmallows. Had it been some sour fizzy chewits, I probably would have turned the place over, smashing up a few test tubes, lobbing some lab chairs through those windows with the wire squares inside and taking some of the staff hostage until my demand for more sour flavoured fizzy chewits had been met. That's an exaggeration, obviously, but you get the point. My family sometimes retell this anecdote of when we had this little holiday in Scotland on the remote and very windy island of Barra. I was pretty young then, 5 or 6 maybe, but I vaguely remember it. There was a disco or something and a couple of my older siblings had taken me along. I, for some reason, really wanted a can of Sprite. But there was no Sprite and I cried all the way home, to the point where everyone back at the house could hear me coming, bawling my eyes out about not getting a can of Sprite. It's a strange one because growing up I didn't really like fizzy drinks and still don't. What probably happened is that I was fully fixated on getting a can of Sprite, and when I didn't get it, well, I cried. But this pattern has repeated itself over and over, just without the tears. If you've checked out any stuff I've written previously, you might know that in a very small, low-stakes suburban satellite town came from a loving home in a safe area, lower middle class, first world way, my life's been a little bit chaotic. School, loads of jobs, often skint, debts bouncing from place to place, not much of a plan at all. The best things in my life are all the things that aren't me, i.e. my family, my wife, my mates and my dogs. Going back to that experiment, I really do think there was something in it, because I've always struggled to delay gratification. There's a number of examples I could talk about here, situations where I've struggled to get a grip on my own temptations. Some of them are innocuous, and some of them are a bit shame-inducing, but I'll spare you on those and talk about computer games. It's a damning indictment, though, that I have so many options to elaborate on here. What I can say, a lot of them, particularly the more embarrassing ones, I've managed either to stop doing or stick a lid on, just about. Nothing that bad though, fear not. But I am still occasionally partial to going into a newsagent, then to the kids section of the sweetie shelf and buying a pack of sour fizzy chewits, sometimes 2, and smashing the lot in short succession, only to be reminded about it when I get home, put my key in the door and a load of little green wrappers come flying out my pockets. The first games console I owned was a NES. Probably the best Christmas ever. It was 1994, I think. My brother Will and I got a NES to share with one game, Mario Brothers, the first one. Nintendo were phasing out the NESes, so they were going cheap and they'd pretty much stopped making games for it, as the Super Nintendo, the next generation model, was already out there kicking ass. I would have been aware of all of this and probably wanted a SNES, like most of the other kids, but I still remember being super happy about getting the NES, and we had hours of fun on that thing. I never completed Mario though. Of course I didn't. We managed to get a few games for the NES between us via second-hand shops and car boot sales. The buzz of bringing home a new game would get me so excited, but I never completed a single one. Not one, despite being almost permanently fixated on getting new games. The games would get hard, too hard, and then I'd get angry, then deflated, then stop. Then I'd be on to the next one and I'd be excited all over again. Perhaps I preferred the packaging to the games. They often had these cool illustrations on them like Double Dragon. For my 13th birthday, my mum took me to Trading Exchange in West Croydon and I got a Sega Mega Drive. By this point, Sega were already onto their next generation console, the Saturn. But like the NES, I was still very happy to have the Mega Drive. With my paper round money, I'd go to this second-hand game shop in Crawley after school where they had stocks of old games going cheap that people had traded in. Again, the buzz and excitement of choosing a game and getting it home was the best. I'd be sat there at school all day long just thinking about it, often not knowing what I was going to buy. It was that fixation of going to do it. I did manage to complete a couple of games on the Mega Drive, Altered Beast and Sonic, but both on easy mode. I remember telling myself that once I'd completed Sonic on the easy setting, I'd do it on the harder mode. Did I? Of course I didn't. The vast majority of the games I had were uncompleted. There's a pattern emerging here. One of the more interesting moments in computer games history was when Sega launched the Mega CD. We even did a case study on it for GCSE Business Studies. This was an add-on that plugged into the Mega Drive and enabled you to play games with much higher bit rates as well as CDs. They were brought out as the Sega Saturn, which was the 32-bit console in line with the Sony PlayStation was delayed or something. All of this being the precursor to Sega's downfall as a console maker. As far as I know, the Mega CD flopped, and then they brought the Saturn out, which also flopped. But what this all meant for nerdy kids with not much money, but who liked buying games and never completing them, was that if you looked in the right places, there was a load of Mega CD consoles and games going cheap. There was one game on the Mega CD that I'd come to own that I'd actually put a considerable amount of time into. Probably the only one bar Championship Manager on the PC, and that was Dune. But Dune broke me. It was a role-playing game that featured footage from the 80s film, which was stinging it. The further you went along, mining spice, fighting wars and all that, the more footage you unlocked. I remember really enjoying the story aspect to it and having a few breakthrough moments where I figured out how to do things that I couldn't previously do, where before I would have quit very quickly. Something about this game compelled me to stick with it. I was really enjoying it, looking forward every day after school to get home and play it. I actually felt like I was finally seeing the benefit of persevering with something. It took me weeks, probably months, but I got right to the end of the game. The Mega CD had some inbuilt memory which the Mega Drive never had, which meant you could save games, which at the time was revolutionary, but it was temperamental. It was whilst playing one day that the CD thing seemed to get stuck, making a disturbing noise whilst the image on the screen froze, my Fremen guide leading me to the final battle in the Ornithopter. I can still see that boxy polygon image now. It's soldered onto my brain. I did what any desperate person who doesn't know what they are doing does and powered it off at the wall. I turned it back on and again, only to reveal that all my saved data had been wiped. Gone. I was gutted, mate. Hours and hours of gaming. The one game I'd tried really hard with and seemed to be getting somewhere with, and bosh, deleted, all gone. The kid that didn't eat the marshmallow probably would have started again. Did I go back and start again? Of course I didn't. I carried on playing games for a few more years in a similar pattern. I remember enjoying Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1 and completing that, on easy mode, of course, but gradually I moved away from games, and once I started rapping, music pretty much took over. Though I'd largely stopped playing games, the patterns continued to play out in other areas of my life. I couldn't stick things out, whether it was exercise, doing college work, getting up on time for work, playing football teams, being unable to resist buying loads of trainers on my credit card. Even when I started going to open mics, there'd be weeks and weeks where I wouldn't go. Thinking about that Marshmallow experiment, the friends I had who were good at computer games and would see them through mostly went on to do well in life. Did they all go on to become wildly successful? Not necessarily, but certainly displayed some general life competencies the older they got. I'm sure they know how to change a car tyre or do a bit of basic plastering or avoid the kiddie section of the sweetie shelf in their local Londis. I suppose the question is, for me, is what do you do with all the kids that can't control their temptations, or even adults for that matter? I'm not sure what the answer is, but from what I've learned on this little journey I've been on, is that there is probably some deeper reasons as to why that kid has to have that marshmallow right there and then. And it's about working out with them what that is, then working out with them to build up the resilience to resist it. Only then might they realise that marshmallows aren't very nice anyway, and computer games are overrated.
It's longer time! Yay!
Lager Time. Poems, Stories and Thoughts. By me, Paul Cree. Who else?